It's time for a check-in on the day's business news. Another grim reminder of the cost of the war. A new UN report shows that nearly a third of jobs in Ukraine have been lost since the start of the invasion. Yuka Roye from our business desk is here to tell us more.
Well, Alison, 4.8 million jobs have been lost in Ukraine since Russia's invasion began in February. That's according to the International Labour Organization, which warns that 2 million more could go if hostilities were to continue. In case of a ceasefire, though, 3.5 million jobs could come back quickly. Now, up to half of Ukrainian businesses has been knocked out of operation due to the war. Over a quarter of Ukraine's population has fled their homes, with more than 5 million leaving the country. The ILO says the war could also drive up unemployment in neighbouring countries hosting these refugees and also hit Central Asian economies that rely on remittances from those working in Russia. Let's take a lesson.
The Central Asian countries are also very much concerned because they're very much dependent on migrant workers sending back remittances. And we know if there's a labor market problem in Russia, the first to suffer from it will be the migrant workers. And finally, there's obviously a global impact, a massive global impact through various channels, in particular the rising energy and food prices, which will have a negative impact on employment, in particular in the low and middle developed countries.
Turning to the markets now, and European stocks opened sharply lower this Thursday, tracking declines on Wall Street and Asia. Major indices all off by around 2%, as you can see there, as inflation fears continue to weigh on investor sentiment. In Asia, Hong Kong shares slumped as property developer Sunac China, the country's third largest, missed the deadline for coupon payments on a $740 million offshore bond and said it didn't expect to make payments coming due on other bonds. Meanwhile, the US dollar dipped slightly against the Japanese yen, despite a summary of the Bank of Japan's April policy meeting showing the central bank's officials were still reluctant to change monetary policy to support the currency. Contrary to the US Federal Reserve, the BOJ is keeping negative interest rates and its massive bond buying program, making the yen less attractive to investors. The currency is at the lowest level in 20 years against the US dollar. Now, surging inflation is hitting businesses hard, including farmers. Here in France, there's concern that milk could be in short supply soon if conditions don't improve for producers. In 20 years, the country already lost half of its dairy farmers, and now many more may drop out of their business because of rising fuel prices and inflation. Shirley Sitbon has more.
Wilfried Paco is one of France's remaining 50,000 dairy farmers. But he is not sure for how long he can stay in the business. He owns, with 3 associates, 120 animals. They sell their milk 39 cents per liter, hoping to push the price to 43 cents. Electricity, fuel, animal food, farmers' expenses keep increasing, and remaining afloat is a struggle.
Prices are shooting up and we don't know when it's going to stop. That's the problem.
The current heat wave is not helping. This farmer is supposed to sow corn needed to feed cows next winter, but the soil is dry. Farmers could run low on animal food. If the government doesn't take action, more farmers may abandon the sector. Some experts say prices must increase to save the industry.
We have to get the price of milk over €1 per litre. We have to move over that threshold because our food sovereignty is at stake. It's a reasonable price.
France is Europe's second largest milk producer after Germany. If no action is taken, France, who is a major exporter of dairy products, could lose its position and start importing milk.
Across the Atlantic, the US President Joe Biden visited a farm to pledge support for the sector, blaming Russia's war on Ukraine for the latest spike in global food prices. He praised American farmers for helping the nation during the pandemic and now the Ukraine crisis, calling them the backbone of freedom. On Wednesday, the White House announced a series of support measures, including doubling funding for domestic fertilizer production.
Right now, America is fighting on 2 fronts. At home, it's inflation and rising prices. Abroad, it's helping Ukrainians defend their democracy and feeding those who are left hungry around the world because Russian atrocities, because of what the Russians are doing in the Black Sea. Putin has warships, battleships, preventing the access to Ukrainian ports to get this grain out, to get this wheat out. The brutal war launched on Ukrainian soil has prevented Ukrainian farmers from planting next year's crop and next year's harvest.
And that's it from the business desk for now.
All right, Yuko Arroyo with the business update. Thank you very much for that, as always.